Okay, today's the 6th day and my internet's back, but I've got this video I decided to make. I've got a very simple, small statement, and I'm just going to preface this by saying it's very, very primal. You know, you might have gotten the impression that Christianity is sort of like this, kind of like cuck, kind of weak, be nice to people kind of religion. But at its core, it's got a very simple statement. Here goes. The simple statement is, it is only in bathing in the blood of Christ and devouring God that we can arise once more from the ashes of our fallen empire, kindle new embers of the flame in the hearts of man, and avenge the innocence lost while driving out the unworthy. And I might add, less punchy-wise, but still kind of along the same lines, destroying wicked and evil things, or wickedness and evil itself, and pave the way for a homecoming for all our loved ones, to be united once more forever. That is why I'm loyal to Christianity. And that is a promise that no paganism can promise. Honestly. All the pagans talk of inevitable failure. The secular materialist atheists say there's nothing good and evil. Islam is shed the blood of others because it's good to be violent. But to devour God means to consume what He gives of Himself to you. We have a God in Christianity that gives Himself to you so you can devour Him. Because you bring Him into yourself. He becomes a part of you. And you take in God. You are not God. You are not the source. But you are on a journey to become more like Him over time. And your timeline for doing that is forever. But you have to have the right approach to it first, in the beginnings. And then you can go on this journey successfully in understanding your relationship to God. So I'll give one caveat to this primal promise to ward off any idiocy and inconsistency and wrongness in mindset that I think might be common, which is, if God does it, it's good. If you do it, it's wrong. And by that I mean, you're flawed. God is perfect. When you're devouring God, you become better. And He offers Himself to you to devour, to incorporate into your body, your soul, your mind, and you become, literally, you are what you eat. But you have to have that relationship in a way of He is the source of good, and you are stuck on a lower level of existence with some serious wrongness in you. So you include that primal statement and that caveat and one more thing, which is such a God delights to give himself to you. As long as you approach him the way you would approach a person, because he is a person. When you've wronged them and need something from them. And he promises to deliver and get you to grow and take care of you and become better. Because he loves you even though you wronged him. Yeah. So that's my primal Christianity that I'm loyal to, and everything I've done basically is some sort of metaphysical ordering of the universe that is basically that raw experience of God that I've had. And Jesus Christ is the bridge between man and God, as God and man at the same time. Perfectly man, perfectly God. The bridge between mortal men and God Almighty, because he is God Almighty and he is mortal man, or immortal man now. But he did die, so he was mortal for a while. And he's showing you what God's going to give you going forwards in a way. Both some bad, some good, but the good will outweigh the bad in the end. And the pagans can laugh and say we worship a dead Jew on a stick, and that's and as if that's weak. But they don't have an answer to the Almighty descended to our level to participate in our suffering, to understand who we are, not from judging from on high, but to judge from experiencing what we experience. So there's empathy. But he didn't need to, for his own sake. He was perfectly happy. He did it for our sake, because he loves us. And that dead Jew on a stake rose from the dead. And literally that's the entire theology I have in a very quick way of approaching it. Everything is basically a foundation of that set of principles and so on. That is the core of Christianity. And that's why the Eucharist exists. That's why the talk of justification and sanctification exists, and so on and so on. And so on. And without that bridge, there would just be the Grand Canyon between us and God. We'd never get to where God is. And even though we go to heaven forever and develop forever, we're never going to reach the maximum of God, because God is everything and more. But we will get further along his path infinitely. And that doesn't mean some really boring kind of I know it's good for me but I hate it kind of thing. And it's not a I like it but I know it's bad for me kind of thing either. It's a I know it's good for me and I like it kind of thing. Not always in this life. But the promise is if you get past the things you don't like but are good for you, you'll eventually hit the things that you like and are good for you at the same time forever and ever and ever. That's why so many Christians could face boiling oil, lions, crucifixion, whippings, stonings, beatings, shipwrecks, beheadings with courage. And that's why they call it the good news. Because what it means is no matter how low you are, if you just adjust your relationship to how you approach God, He will take you to the heights of glory. And it will be no small thing. And it won't be a painful thing every time. It'll be painful often, at first at least. Maybe later too in different ways. But it won't be the kind of pain that... It'll be closer to the pain of a really intense workout that you enjoyed the burning sensation of your muscles in. It's like just part and parcel of getting a good thing done that makes you feel good more than it hurts. And that direction of travel is what God promises you. And that's why I'm loyal to God. Because no one on earth can possibly give me that level of security in the end and what I desire in the end. And I am not a pacifist. I mean, I worked on myself and my good nature and so on somewhat. So I've worked on my temper somewhat and so on. But that's because there's a tendency to think you need to hurt someone when you don't actually need to solve a problem. A real problem. Like, they could actually be a bad person, they could be a good person, or they could be a bad person, let's say. And you don't have to hurt them necessarily to solve them as a problem. And we're too tempted too easily to hurt people to solve our problems. It's just a fundamental nature of humanity. However, sometimes you really do need to hurt someone to solve a moral problem. That is a very real thing. And that's why I like the primal nature of Christianity and why it speaks to me. Because I am not a pacifist by nature. I'm a very full-blooded fighting man in experience and drive and motivation and so on. I've become exhausted by God from working me over for my antisocial levels of anger. But He's never told me I'm wrong to have this understanding. Just that I was a little too ignorant of when force and violence must be applied. And I was underdeveloped in the peaceful arts. But He didn't abolish my violence. He focused it. He transformed it. He was an alchemist, basically, that transformed my impulses to violence into something holy and controlled, focused. You will either focus your rage, or you will let your rage focus you. But rage and focus both belong in that ordering, some which way. The question is, are you a sloppy mess, or are you a trained killer of God's enemies, if necessary? Are you disciplined, controlled? You have the fire. You know how to keep it from burning your house down. Or is it the other way around? Or are you a completely fireless, freezing to death individual? You need the fire. You need the focus. You need teaching, cultivation, lessons on the art of growing things. And when you learn to light a fire in the hearts of man and to cultivate them so that they can control the inner fire of themselves by God doing it in you first and then you to them pointing the way to God, you begin to understand how this is a very powerful possibility because it can spread. And yet, a controlled, when you have fire and water and metal, you can boil water. Fire on water, or water when mixed with fire puts out the fire. But if you put metal between it, it boils the water. And when you constrain it further, you create steam engines, which can power machines and technology. It's so simple. And eventually you get sophisticated enough with the laws of reality that you can make something called a taser. And a taser is basically just calling down thunder and lightning on your enemies in a flashlight-sized stick. Not, you know, I mean, that's not a small thing. That's miraculous. The people of the past would almost consider us gods if they saw us. And I'm talking of like 300 years ago Europe, which was the most advanced technologically in the world at the time. So we see, in a sense, sort of, not entirely, but kind of, the rise of technological civilization on the path God set out for us. And we see that we get pizza pops, which didn't even exist 300 years ago. We got microwaves for heating up food easy. We got pop, pizza, chocolate cake, hamburgers, like food, convenience, energy drinks, cheaper liquor. And it's not all bad. It's more comfortable in a way. And yet we have the power of thunder and lightning in our hands. And you can argue that time crawls along with minimal developments over the years. But I was born and existed before the internet, and now we have thinking computers, like actual AIs and stuff basically, or something close to it. My dad was born before we went into space at all, basically. And now we've been to Mars and beyond the solar system, and people are thinking of making a moon base up there. And we've got satellites all over the world that give rise to the internet. It's mind-blowing when you think about it. And yet the human condition remains consistent. Well, what changes the humans? And the answer is communication, talking, ideas. Maybe biology as well. Biology does change over the years. But the ideas that shape you as a person individually, beyond your biology, are the middle ground between technological innovation and biological stability and gradual transition. And society is the medium by which those two operate. So yeah, some people might get in their heads that they can become gods, but that is the wrong approach. Some people get in their heads there are no gods, but that is the wrong approach. There is one God, and He is guiding us to be closer to Him in all these ways that I described.